Joining us now is the majority leader of the Virginia House of Delegates, Republican from the 66th District of Virginia, Kirk Cox. Mr. Majority Leader, glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, John. It's great to be with you.
And now, let's get right to it. Not many days remaining in this short session. Right now, as Majority Leader, Delegate Cox, what are your top priorities between now and the end of session? What are the things that you absolutely, in your mind, have to get done?
Well, the biggest one for me is K-12 because I'm a 30-year, just retired school teacher. So I would say that's a little bit personal to me. I would say that's transportation and K-12 are the top two, but for me it's K-12. And, of course, K-12 is going to be done in the budget. So the budget is not through yet. We try to finish that up by Tuesday night. And so that's a key component. And there's a lot of legislation still alive in K-12 that's pretty important. I'll just give you one or two quick examples.
Sure.
As far as the budget goes, there is a 2% pay raise for teachers across the board. They haven't gotten a pay raise since 2007. But I'm actually more intrigued with another piece we have in the budget. It's called strategic compensation because a lot of people want to eventually get where teachers are paid, not necessarily merit pay, because merit pay would be, judging someone on an SOL test. You might have a better group of students than another. But this does measure teachers on student growth. And very quickly how that works is, if I can move a student along, they come to my class in the 30th percentile, and I can move them to the 50th percentile. That's 20% growth. I get credit for that. If you get a kid in the 90th percentile and he doesn't, he actually drops to the 80th percentile, he would pass the SOL test, but you've really not helped him at all grow. So it's a unique concept. I think it's sort of the wave of the future. We have about $7 million for a pilot program in the budget for that. And then very quickly on legislation, we have some interesting things like a teacher cabinet, et cetera. But the two that your listeners might find most interesting are the A through F report card. You judge schools A, B, C, D, F. Currently, a school has accreditation standards, and frankly, no one quite understands what accredited with warning means, what fully accredited means, and all that type of thing. So this was simply grade schools. For parents, I think this would really be an eye-opener. I sort of laugh, we get graded down here by every interest group in the world, the Sierra Club, the Family Foundation, so that's a real common sense, I think, approach. And finally, an opportunity school district. This is sort of a really interesting bill that says if your school has been denied accreditation 2 straight years, then basically you will have to convert to a charter school or a lab school. You will have to do something much more radical than we're doing now with failing schools. So that's sort of the K-12 picture.
So why don't we go to a couple of the common sense ideas that you have, no question about it. Going to the A to F report card of a school. Now, the way we understand it, that means that any mom or dad with somebody in school, anybody basically, can look up their school, whether it be elementary, middle school, high school, and there's going to be a grade there, A through F, and it's a grade that people understand. A is excellent, F is bad, C is average. And we've had some questions. How does that grading, like who at the end of the day is the authority behind deciding that grade per school?
There's actually a formula, John, that goes into that grade, and the Department of Education, uses a set formula to make that determination. Now, what I really like is that we are moving towards a model once again that will be a student growth model down the road. Now, the model now is a combination of things like SOL tests, et cetera, but we've actually got a bill in this year that will also say that student growth measures will also be part of your model. So it's fair in that everyone's judged by the same standards. Formula, you kick in the numbers, and then you come out with an A, B, C, D, or F. It's not someone subjectively going, well, I think you look better than the other one. I agree with your premise that, you could, if you're a parent today, you could try to figure out what your school is. But frankly, with the way it's done, it's just very hard to understand. I mean, what does accredited with warning mean? Does that mean you're sort of good, sort of just bad in one or two things? And so I think what it will mean is, you're right, if you're an F school, I think parents will say, this is just, I'm not going to tolerate this, we've got to make changes. And frankly, even if you're a C school, it is, and how can we get to a B? How can we work together to get to a B? So I just think it's really going to get parents more involved and, frankly, put a little bit of oomph behind quality schools.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt, because that's, people understand grades. I mean, if your own child comes home with a C or a D in a particular subject matter, you refocus his homework, you change his time, he can't see TV or her can't see TV to a certain time. I mean, I'll give you a perfect live example, is my family is relocating to Northern Virginia from Chesapeake. So we looked at housing over the weekend in South Riding, and the first thing my wife did is she wanted to look up, I've got a third grader, the elementary school, I think it was a place we were looking at called Liberty Elementary School or something. Well, you got to go online, and she's getting different comments on Google or whatever, but there isn't anything that says A, B, C, D, or F. And so I think that would also be extremely helpful in being able to give parents an idea before they come in what the quality of the school is, and would certainly put pressure on those schools in order to have an A or a B, right?
You're exactly right. Your example is better than my example. I mean, that's a great example. That's exactly how it would work. I mean, when you go in to buy a new house in the real estate market, I mean, you're looking for the same things. And you're right. I mean, it's hard, because you might get 4 or 5 comments that are good, and then you get these 1 or 2 that are bad, and you're going, well, who's right? I mean, or
you have no idea.
Right. You have no idea. You're guessing. So yeah, I'm excited about this concept, and it's certainly gotten some no votes, but I do think that we have a pretty good chance of success with that.
Common Sense News Time, 7:51 on the John Frederick Show. Editorial Director Steve Ray along with John this morning, and we're speaking to Majority Leader Kirk Cox from the Virginia House of Delegates. And Majority Leader Cox, you put forth on day one in this short session a bill that would put forward a plan to build a Veterans Care Center in Northern Virginia. What is the status of that bill, and is the governor and state treasurer ready to move ahead and request funds for the state share of construction costs on that?
The bill is doing very well. The bill has actually gotten through both the House and the Senate. I have every indication that the governor will sign that bill. I put a similar bill in probably 5 or 6 years ago for the Richmond area. We located a Veterans Care Center next to McGuire's Hospital in Richmond. It's actually named the Sitter Barfoot Care Center after 2 Congressional Medal of Honor winners. And these are facilities that are generally about 200 beds. There are a tremendous amount of veterans in Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia, 2 places that do not have Veterans Care Centers. And they're very catered to veterans. There's one in Roanoke that has a wonder garden for Alzheimer's patients, and they really specialize in veterans care. Here's the challenge. The challenge is, my bill basically says that when the federal government basically, and there's a priority list, when they say that Northern Virginia is number 1 on the priority list, the state must match the federal money. My bill says the state money will be available, whether it's this year, whether it's next year. And basically it says there'll be a Treasury loan to pay for the state portion, and then we will come back and fund that either through bonds or cash. And it tells the federal government we're ready to go. So if you drop us on the priority list, some other states might say we're not ready to go. My bill says we're ready to go.
And what is the state share of the construction cost? Am I correct in thinking it's close to maybe $30 million for that facility?
I don't think it will be that high, and that's a good question. But it has not been quite that high in previous ones, because, of course, construction costs change. But don't forget, we have actually gotten some incredible pricing, both on our roads and our college building projects the last few years, because, as you know, there is a lot of people out there looking for construction work. So I would suspect we can get a better price than that. But basically the state share now, remember, that's probably the total cost of the facility. So, the state share would probably be about half that, my guess would be. So, but we don't have an exact figure yet until the federal government basically says your priority, you're up, and here's the cost.
All right, and your comments, please, before I hand you back to John, on the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority actually going to the FBI and advocating for their headquarters to be moved to a space in Maryland, actually advocating in the place of the various states, since we're trying to attract the new FBI headquarters into the Dulles corridor.
Well, I mean, obviously that's not something I would be for. I mean, obviously, I think that would be very important in the Northern Virginia area, so that would not be something I would support.
Common Sense News Time, 7:53. This is the John Frederick Show. We are with Kirk Cox. He's the majority leader of the House of Delegates in Virginia, representing the 66th District. Majority Leader Cox, on your K through 12, we can get back to that for a minute.
Sure.
What is the opposition that you're facing in two areas? One, with the A to F grading report card, and then B, with the strategic compensation. Where are you finding the most resistance to those what seem to be very common sense, parent and kid friendly pieces of legislation?
Well, the A through F is your classic. Some schools are better off than others. Some schools have kids that come from better socioeconomic areas than others, and it's not fair to give a grade to a Northern Virginia school, which might have parents that their per capita income, let's just say, is, I don't know, $60,000, and a school down in an urban area that a per capita income would be much less, and that type of thing. It's not fair. You put a stigma on certain schools, and that type of thing. Now, I don't think that's very legitimate. One of the things that folks do say, and we're moving towards this, that the SOL test might be too heavily a piece of it, but we're going to go to a combination of SOL test and student growth measures, which I think will actually, really make a good system. Because, for example, if you're one of those urban schools and you're really moving those kids forward, which you should be doing, then you'll get some credit in the formula for student growth measures. But that's the main criticism. It's it's the old argument. You got to throw all this money at schools and first before you can fairly grade them. But we've seen some incredible examples of vibrant urban schools just because they got great principals and great teachers.
Sure.
So that's the argument on that one. Strategic compensation, believe it or not, we have really gotten, which I have been pleased with, not as much opposition for that one. Salem schools around Roanoke, Virginia, actually piloted strategic compensation. They did something very smart. They got teachers involved in it. They got teachers to buy into it. And so that one really has gotten a lot less opposition than I thought originally. The big challenge on strategic compensation is for schools to be ready to implement it. I mean, quick example would be, you've basically got to have student growth measures for a lot of different areas. Now, some it's easy. You come in on a certain core subject like math, you can do a pre-test. I can tell you where a kid is, and I can do a post-test, and it's pretty easy to do a measure. Now, how do you measure band? How do you measure some other subjects? You
Right.
can, but you've got to, I think developing some of those measures is a little bit more difficult. So I think it's not opposition, it is how can we get where we can put a strategic compensation system in for more than the core subjects, and do we want to put it in for more than the core subjects? That's probably the big issue on that one.
Okay, we're out of time. We want to thank Majority Leader of the House of Delegates, Chris Cox, Republican, District 66, for joining us today. Sir, we appreciate your insight and your analysis of your K-12 legislation. We're going to keep following that. Thank you, sir, so much.
I can't thank you enough. It was a great opportunity.
Kirk Cox, this was his first appearance on the show. It wasn't as painful as you thought it might be, correct?
It was fun.
All right.
Yeah, we're not that bad.
We'll have you back.
You're good. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.